Let's start the programme with where we're at right now in the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Iran and Israel, avowed enemies, have come into their fiercest direct conflict yet after Iran launched around 180 missiles against Israel on Tuesday evening. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised that Iran will pay for what he says is illegal Iranian aggression. Tehran, for its part, says it will respond to any Israeli retaliation. We've heard from Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has told the West to get lost in his first remarks since the attack on Israel. Israel is pressing on with military action against Hezbollah in Lebanon, which continues to bombard Israel with missiles. Israel today saying more than 100 have been fired into their territory just today alone. These pictures you can see here show the smoke rising from towns on both sides of the border in the last few hours. Now, we're going to bring you more on that in just a moment. But first, we want to recap on Iran's missile bombardment. Almost all of these rockets were shot down, either by Israeli defences or with the help of its allies, and that includes the US and the UK. But some of the ballistic missiles did get through. You can see this footage here, and it appears to show the moment that one struck an area to the north of Tel Aviv. And a missile also struck Gedera in central Israel, inland from the port city of Ashdod. This is a school that was hit. There were no casualties. We are hearing one Palestinian was killed in the West Bank, and that was possibly by debris from a missile which had been shot down. Meanwhile, Israel has banned the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres from entering the country, accusing him of failing to unequivocally condemn Iran's missile attack on Israel. Mr. Guterres has not yet responded. On Tuesday, he did call for a ceasefire. And as we wait to find out what happens next, there are signs both sides are preparing for all eventualities. We've got Iran warning the US against intervention, and the US moving another aircraft carrier battle group to the eastern Mediterranean. We're going to be talking to our correspondent in Beirut, Lina Sinjab, very, very shortly. She's joining us now. But first, we did want to take you to northern Israel and our correspondent who is there, Nick Beek. Nick, very good to see you. What has been happening today in terms of activity on the border?
Well, Lucy, you mentioned that a lot of rockets have been fired today by Hezbollah from Lebanon, which is just over the hills behind us. And we certainly heard some of those being intercepted. The Iron Dome, the Israeli defense doing its work, and those missiles being intercepted and then falling to the ground. What we've also heard today are more explosions going in the other direction. So Israeli artillery firing towards Hezbollah positions. Early this morning, Hezbollah said that they were engaged in direct contact, in direct fighting with the Israelis, and that they took casualties. Now, there hasn't been any official word from the Israelis today. We may expect to hear that in the hours to come, but there have been reports that some Israeli soldiers have been certainly injured in that. Hezbollah also saying that in the last hour or so there's been a second town where there has been fighting. But of course, from where we are, it's extremely hard to ascertain what exactly has happened, Lucy. There has been a short IDF statement in the past 10 minutes or so, the Israeli Defense Forces saying that they are now in close range encounters in southern Lebanon, so confirming that there is fighting. They don't talk about any potential casualties, but they do say that they have destroyed many terrorist infrastructures, as they put it, referring to Hezbollah positions.
And Nick, what has been the reaction in northern Israel to these ballistic missiles that were launched from Iran last night?
Well, for lots of communities, Lucy, here in the north of Israel, for the past year or so, their lives have been coloured by what's happening because there's been this almost daily exchange of fire between the Israeli military and Hezbollah. Hezbollah started firing on the 8th of October, remember, a day after the Hamas attacks, when the fighters broke out of Gaza, and Hezbollah said they were doing this in solidarity. So people here are used to it. It doesn't make it any easier for them. A lot of them have been displaced. So people we've been talking to around the location where we're talking to you today from, they would like to be going back to their homes, which are closer to the border, but they haven't been able to. And just talking to them last night, some people were pleased that this action is being taken, strong action as they described it, to take on Hezbollah, to take out a lot of the top leadership and now move into Lebanon itself, but also other people mindful about what may come next and making the point that we are in what seems to be a spiral of violence with no immediate way out of it.
And in terms of what might come next, Nick, we've heard from the IDF that they want this to be precise and targeted, their actions in Lebanon at the moment. But do people there think that the IDF might need to stay in southern Lebanon for some time?
Well, certainly, if they were to do that, they would need more troops, Lucy, if they were to create some sort of buffer zone. And could you say that there are indications that that is coming? Well, possibly, because this morning the Israeli Defense Forces said that they were sending another division, so potentially thousands of troops, to this arena, to this place, to the north of the country, the border with Lebanon. Now, that is either for the ongoing operations, which you say Israel is characterizing as quite short-term raids going in and out, not particularly far into Lebanon, they say, but could it be that it's preparing for some sort of bigger operation in which they create a buffer? Because remember, Lucy, the whole justification, the whole aim that the generals are talking about, and also the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, they say their aim is to push Hezbollah back so that people can return to their homes, all those tens of thousands of people who were displaced. So that is what the Israelis are trying to do. And of course, across the border, it's a different story for those hundreds of thousands, well, we're told at least 100,000 Lebanese civilians who've had to leave their homes, told by the Israelis to move. And this morning, the Israelis saying that people in 25 more communities should flee as soon as possible.
Nick, thank you so much. Nick Beek there in northern Israel. Nick just confirming what we've been hearing from the IDF. We've had that statement coming through to us. Just in the past few minutes or so, they are engaged in close-range encounters in southern Lebanon. They say there are operations in several areas. But let's find out what's happening in Beirut right now. We can join Lena Sinjab, who is our correspondent there. Lena, we've just had that update from Nick about what is happening on the border. What's been going on overnight and this morning in Beirut?
Well, the tension and hostility are continuing, Lucy. Overnight, there were more strikes on Dahiya area, which is in the south of Beirut, a Hezbollah stronghold. People are constantly waking up at night on these kind of attacks, worrying where the next attack will take place. Drones move over head in Beirut, looking for other targets. There hasn't been so far in my area drones this morning, but just 10 minutes drive or less than 10 minutes drive this way. Yesterday there was an attack. Not in Dahiya area. This is a residential area. It's called Bir Hassan, where an apartment was blown up next to a hospital and next to a school where IDPs. So all of these things, Lucy, are making people really worried that this battle is not going to be contained within Hezbollah areas or in the south of Lebanon. With the advancement into southern Lebanon, people fear that another scenario like the one in 2006 might happen, and that this war is expanding slowly to include more parts of Lebanon into it.
And of course, Lena, that means for people who have had to evacuate that they may be away from their homes for quite some time. Can you give us the picture on the humanitarian front and how these people are being cared for?
Well, everyone is rushing for help on a government level, civil society, communities, or the parties themselves. And, the people who fled from the south, but also who fled from Dahiya neighborhood, which is the southern suburb of Beirut, are stretched all over, many parts of Beirut, even like here in the neighborhood. The first few days, you can see the sea beside me. All the promenade around the sea was filled with people sleeping on the streets. Now, fewer are sleeping on the street these days because they've been housed into schools, into empty apartments, or they found their relatives. Those who have money are staying in hotels or even went to the mountains. The airport is is also packed with people who are trying to leave. So it all depends on where you come from in the society, what can you afford in terms of where you can find safety. The government says around 1 million has been displaced, and they need, accommodation. They need sanitation. They need food. They need support. It's really a big burden on the Lebanese government, on Lebanon itself. And this is a country that's already struggling with its economy, struggling with its financial crisis that has been, ongoing for the past 4 or 5 years. So it's really calling on international aid to come in. And, the society is incredibly supportive because everyone is out in the street, those who are cooking, those who are buying, blankets and mattresses. There is a great sense of solidarity, but the demand is beyond what people or the government can provide.
Lina, thank you so much. Lina Sinjab joining us from Beirut.